Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. On this episode, I'm speaking with Samuel Adranyi. He's a Microsoft MVP with a broad range of interests and activities ranging from Power Platform to Azure IoT to software development. And Samuel does a wide variety of community activities as well, even by the high standards of the Microsoft MVP award. He works locally in his home city of Accra, Ghana, where he organizes events and mentors individuals. But he's also involved in the broader and very active Microsoft tech community in West Africa. And with his various content creation efforts, his blogs, podcast, videos, he is reaching the worldwide community and building a real international presence around new technology and professional development as well. We talk about Samuel's community efforts, what the Microsoft tech scene is like today in Ghana and more broadly in West Africa, some of his own efforts like an award-winning IoT solution he built, and some of his experiences being an MVP. All right, Samuel Adranyi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been long overdue.
Yeah.
A couple of schedules and misses and schedules, but finally I'm grateful we're doing this.
Yeah, me too. And I was just thinking to myself, and I was looking at for our recent podcast episodes, I think, I can't remember the last time I did one with someone in the same country as me. I mean, I've talked to a couple of people from Australia and I think someone in Europe and now you. I mean, it's just, I've been on a streak of different countries, which is a lot of fun. I mean, it just speaks to how international this community has become. Just as we get going here, for anyone who doesn't know you, I'm sure some of our listeners definitely have seen some of your presentations, your writing, your own podcasting, but can you tell us a little more about who you are and sort of what you do? I know you have a few different roles these days.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Jason, again. So I'm Samuel Adranyi, like you mentioned. Currently based in Accra, Ghana. I'm currently a senior software engineer at Andela. Andela is kind of like a global talent hub. Which seeks to connect top African engineers to partners across the world. Freak, so to speak. So I do a lot of IoT stuff. I'm kind of like I think I found myself in a position where I like to connect the physical to software or the physical to stuff. So things like that are, stuff that excite me. So that's just a nice stuff. But fun fact, up until last year, I was living in Beaverton, Oregon. Yep.
In Oregon?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know, right?
Were you just working there as well as in IT and software development?
Yes. So my previous company was headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. So I stayed there for quite a number of years before making a transition back home because I felt, it was time to come home and give off. I just felt that the impact wasn't that much back in the States, but it was here. And truthfully, it's just been a year and a couple of months since I was back, and it's been tremendous. The Power Platform community, the IoT, the streams, got my MVP, got Humans of IT, got a Hackstar ambassador. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy.
I mean, what do you think that you're approaching things with a different perspective, being back home, or do you think maybe it's just you can make more of an impact there?
Yeah, I think it's the impact in the sense that I feel that back in the States, a lot of these things were not, people were taking a lot of these things for granted. Like I used to also be part of the organization team for the Portland Azure user group. I mean, people appreciated it, but the impact wasn't that much. As opposed to back home when, people are yearning for some of these content and to know that you're delivering and they're appreciating and the impact is quite bigger. I think it's more impactful here. Because one of the things I used to do before I came back home was when I was living in the States, anytime I came down to Ghana for like vacation or anything, I actually organized a conference. And I think one of the very first ones I did was the Alexa Skill Kit workshop. Actually, that was like the first in the whole of Africa. No one had done anything like that. And I had been building skills up until that point. And I could see, the passion and that enthusiasm and that desire in the eyes of the people wanting to learn more about it. So from that point on, I felt that the impact would be much felt back home, as opposed to living in the States.
Are the people who in Ghana who are taking a real interest in, like you said, some of the Azure tech or Power Platform? Are they people who are coming out of other technology roles, or are they people who are like younger and seeing it as sort of a new professional opportunity?
Yeah, so truth is it's coming from all different age groups. We have people who pretty much either knew something about, let's say, Power BI and thought it was just Power BI and then got exposed to like Power Apps and all that. There are people who are basically new to it and are realizing that, hey, I could, quickly put together an application, connect to the data source and have things running. So it's being from, all age, groups, all demographics, and even cuts across. So even though I'm in Accra, Ghana, a lot of the followers and a lot of people I work with are in Nigeria. And then we are
Oh,
actually,
okay.
I mean, currently as we speak, there's the Microsoft MCT Cloud Bootcamp, which is organized by the West African MCT Group, and it's going to be running for the next 8 Saturdays. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Okay, so people from different West African countries kind of tend to
Yes,
collaborate together
exactly.
on
Yeah,
these communities. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I had seen. I think it must have been a blog post of yours, but showing you sort of helping, leading maybe one of these Saturday events, and it was very crowded. I mean, there were a lot of people there looking to learn on. I think it was Azure focused.
yeah,
But yeah, it was notable to me. I was like, wow, that's a lot of people there.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
spending some time on this. Um,
yeah.
and you mentioned IoT and how much you enjoy it. Do you remember sort of what first got you excited about it, or has it just been always present to you?
Well, so I think there was this inborn thing. So backstory, I actually grew up. I was born and brought up in a joint forces barracks. So my dad, I come from a family of blue blood. So the police, the military, all mixed up. So we used to the barracks where I was born and brought up was actually the national workshop for the police. So you could see different things from armored vehicles, like all sorts of vehicles that were probably in a crash, that were some of them were just total. So there was always like parts around to take all these vehicles and play around. So I think from right from my childhood, I was kind of like that kid that would always break, the radio, mess things up, and trying to figure it out. But I wasn't still, excited about it up until I got to the States. I chanced upon some YouTube video, and the guy was just showing an Arduino. Up until then, I was just a hardcore software engineer. Like, I knew nothing about embedded systems, I knew nothing about IoT, connecting external stuff. Even though I always was passionate about the fact that, how could I connect something externally, and I sort of had that, feel. I watched this thing on Arduino. I mean, I watched it, I think, on a Monday or Tuesday, and I kept watching series of videos on Arduino. And then Friday, immediately after work, then Radio Shack was still functional. So then Friday after work, I rushed into Radio Shack, bought myself a kit, and then that weekend I was able to do the blink, connect it to some relays and stuff, and that was it. I just got hooked and then just started looking into it, looking at different boards, started attending meetups, started reading resources, getting sensors, buying kits, and that was it. And I just fell in love, and it's just been like that. Yeah.
And now you're obviously looking at how to bring IoT scenarios into, or I guess how to build out IoT scenarios. Where do you see that right now? Because I just my perspective is, I feel like there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of great ideas around it, but I wonder how many organizations are ready to invest or are making new investments in IoT today outside of maybe very large budget, sort of large enterprises. What's been your experience?
So it's still growing,
Hmm.
especially in Africa. I've had a couple of discussions with companies, that are trying to look at how to augment their current processes. I mean, we all know that IoT is not new. It's being like um, in existence for years. It's just that the technology has become more accessible. The technology has grown, has evolved, has matured, making it easy for people to build a lot of things. But a lot of people are coming to the realization that one way or the other, it's easier today to add some physical automation to their processes. So you have things like, the healthcare, where people are looking at how, how we can integrate, wearables or health devices or fitness tracking devices, collect data and make meaning out of it. You have companies that are trying to look at how they can augment factory their factory processes, all right, to that as well. So it's growing. The good thing is that prior to, like, when I came, a lot of people probably had just it was just a buzzword, but now they are realizing that, look, it's actually something that is doable. Without, like, today you can implement an IoT solution without a huge budget.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk about the UNDP project. You realize that it wasn't anything too expensive. It was just a bunch of things around that built that solution. So yeah, I think it's growing.
All right. And you presented on even bringing IoT together with Power Platform tools, right? Can you talk a
Yeah.
little about that? What are some of the highlights of that scenario?
Yeah. So again, when you're working with IoT stuff, most people just think, oh, it's just a matter of connecting sensors and reading data and all that. But then it goes beyond that. You can have a complete orchestration or business process around it. Let's use, for example, I know Johnson and Johnson is one huge use case. Where they are selling smart control systems and then, like, air conditioners, and they're able to monitor them from remote locations. They're able to gather that data, run some analytics on it to do predictive maintenance, to the extent that they can manage complete buildings, the heating and cooling in buildings. These are different ways you can do that. So it's just not okay, just connecting sensors and leaving them to run on their own. You probably want to monitor the systems, you want to interact with the systems, you want to connect with the systems. And that is where I realized that, okay, to do this, in the past, you had to probably be a pro dev. You needed to put up, probably, like, yeah, a website, and then connect it with some APIs and things to get the data to the website. So I was just thinking, well, Power Platform is, citizen developers, low code, no code. We could actually integrate that, so you don't necessarily have to be a pro dev to connect your IoT solutions to a power platform array of services. So from Power Automate, to Power Apps, Power BI, even dynamic field services using uses IoT. And I'm doing an update of the interfacing with the Power Platform, and now we're using the Power Virtual Agent to control the devices, my IoT devices.
Oh, okay. What are some of the components of Azure that you guide new learners toward? Like, for example, I would think Azure IoT Central is maybe one of the core elements that people need to understand if they're really going to work in this space. Are there others?
Yeah, I mean, so I've had a couple of opportunities to speak about this, and people seem to be interested. A lot of people are very interested. And funny thing is, as we speak, I have a lot of people waiting on a masterclass I'm coming to do on IoT. People are like, we want to get started, want to get doing stuff, and because it's IoT is more practical, and because of COVID times, we're having to look at the right timing to look at how we'll be able to do this, because it would be much interested for you to have that hands-on experience than to say get the kit and follow us virtually. But yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there are a lot of people who are showing interest in it.
All right. Yeah. Well, I was hoping to talk a little about this sort of solution that you built in particular around COVID-19 detect and protect challenge, which was that UN related? I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but and
yeah,
you
that's
have some videos about it, right? Where you created basically
yeah,
a hand washing solution. It was sort of country specific, right? It used
yeah,
so it sort of built off of the
PVC.
yeah,
Yep,
PUC, but also it was actually sort of an extension of a certain type of like washing
yep,
device. That's I think it's
yep.
really kind of native to Ghana, right?
Yep, yeah, yeah. So with COVID, when COVID, I mean, with all the outbreaks and all that, there was emphasis on hand washing, and all that. And a common solution that a lot of people were using here was, they called it a Veronica bucket. It's just a big bucket, and they actually connect a tap to it, the faucets to it, and it still wasn't that safe, that hygienic, so to speak, because you have to open the faucet, wash your hands and have to close it. So if you washed your hand, if you open the faucet with your unclean hands, washed it, and then now touched it again to clean it, you've done basically nothing. You've just back to square one. So it was actually my wife's idea. I was just sitting home one morning. She just came and said, you see this bucket, I want you to automate this bucket. I don't want what's already on the market. I want you to make it automatic so that I don't have to touch the faucet. It's like, okay, let's see what we do. So I just went into my IoT stuff, picked sensors and stuff that I had, and then and then in 5 days, we I mean, I came up with that, just using things around.
Yeah, it was cool to see because it is sort of this combination of, it's obviously a proof of concept. So there's just sort of connected
Yep.
PVC,
Yeah.
but then there's some really cool electronics hooked up to it,
Yep.
and sensors, and the part that makes it really smart is, I think, like you pointed out in the demo, if I remember, where it can capture information on activity and
Yep.
analyze it, store it, send it off to a a centralized
Yep.
location perhaps. And that's where it really gets interesting. I guess that's really.
And it's all powered by the Power Platform. So there are a lot of Power Automate stuff happening in the background.
Right. Yeah. It's have you taken it any further, or was it really just that proof of concept?
Yeah, so after the UN thing, a couple of people have come to me and like, Sam, why don't we look at it, rebuild it in a form factor that is quite easy to deploy. So we're actually looking into it. We're doing some schematics to see how we can enclose it, make it much easier, and then deploy it. So yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah. Anything else regarding Microsoft's efforts around IoT that you're features that you want to see them deliver in the future, in particular?
Well, they're kind of doing a lot now in the IoT space, especially IoT on the edge, bringing all that intelligence there,
Edge computing, that kind of thing.
edge computing and all that, because now we can do a lot of the processing, like all the AI processing we're doing. Like one of the features that we want to add to the hand wash system is to use AI to check if you're actually washing your hands properly. So we kind of like trying to gamify it. So if at the end of the 20 seconds, if you it is going to rate you less on a scale of 1 to 10 whether you washed your hands properly. So I would want to see a lot more in the areas of making it much more accessible. It's one of my pain points since I came back, because access to the cloud technologies has been a bit challenging, because credit cards are not like that common of a thing back here in Ghana and most of African countries. So for instance, if you have to sign up for like a cloud account, you need to have a credit card. And most of these young people wanting to go into it either don't have credit cards, or the cards are not acceptable by the payment platforms. So there's this movement we're trying to work on. Mobile wallets are a huge thing back here. So we're trying to see if they can still use that as a means of KYC validation to allow a lot of young developers go into the space. So I would want to see some of these localized things, and then also localized content, because most times the examples and learning parts they see are not easily relatable to their everyday life. So those are things that we want to see happening. And again, I'm really glad that and ready to help in those spaces. The more reason why I run the IoT shows on Tuesday, to try to make it applicable.
Yeah, that's really interesting about the payment. Something I wouldn't have thought of. The other thing I wonder about, related to a region like West Africa, is just like how close you are to Azure data centers. Because I was trying to think as you spoke there. I mean, is that okay? Sort of the cloud experience in Ghana.
Oh yeah, it is. So currently there are two. I think there are two centers in Africa, South Africa. There are two, I think, regions in South Africa.
Which is very far.
Yes, it's far. But then from a lot of the deployments I have done, France Central is really close.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Latency is quite is really good. So yeah, so it's not. I mean, we're hoping that over time we're going to probably get a few more data centers probably in the east, maybe in Kenya, and then maybe in the west as well. Just to augment the because this the rise of especially the power platform, the rise of Microsoft techs in Africa is going high.
Yeah, can you talk a little more about that? I mean, you said, I mean, I guess in your day job, you're working as a senior dev, but
Yeah.
partner, but your clients tend to be overseas.
Yeah, yeah. So my clients tend to be overseas. So I would say that at this point, most of the clients I work for, are not doing anything Microsoft at this point. But I mean, out of that, a lot of interventions, a lot of things I do out is mostly Microsoft based. There's a lot of hype on Dynamics. There's a lot on Office 365. There's a lot of power, and a lot of the Microsoft guys will tell you that up until recently there wasn't a lot of traction coming from Africa on, especially on the Power and O365, but at least we're grateful that now there's a lot of traction coming from it. The developer community is just growing exponentially, and businesses are now realizing that there's a lot of resources in terms of technical and human resource skilled enough to support them. So yeah, there's a lot of traction, which I'm really really happy about.
Yeah, cool. And I mean, if we could just touch on perhaps, you do have other sort of roles listed in LinkedIn. Are those anything that you want to mention there? I saw that you're the co-founder of this organization in Toba. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so Intubua is it was a organization between myself and two other colleagues back in the US. We identified a, well, I wouldn't say it's a problem. It was just a digital gap in the financial, and so we call it the social finance ecosystem. We sought to bridge it. So we're working together to see how we can bring that to life. Yeah, yeah, but it's just the three of us, trying to do stuff, or to just support social intervention, so to speak.
all right. Um, you also host your own podcast. Well, I don't know. Maybe you do
Yep.
multiple. It sounds like you do multiple broadcasts and then also recording podcasts. Control Escape.
Yeah. Yep.
If that's how you refer to it. But
Yeah.
I caught a
Yep.
couple of episodes of that. That was really interesting because you're
Yep.
profiling people.
Yep.
I don't know if they were all local, but just getting different stories from young
Yeah.
Africans, right?
Yeah, exactly. So most of them, not they are not all local. It's all around. It's technically all around the world. The concept was that a lot of young Africans, want to get into tech, but they feel it is far fetched. They feel it's too far away from them. They feel they can attain or reach that goal. So the goal was to highlight, young or African technologists all around the world, in the Microsoft, in the Googles, and tech, like pretty much anywhere in tech, to speak to them, to tell them their life stories, to tell them their journey. So if you realize what we're doing now is a journey series, so that will serve as a motivation for the young ones coming up, to tell them that look, the people who came from the remotest part of Ghana, today they are like PMs in Microsoft. They are like lead program the program analyst in Google and the rest. So it's not far fetched from you. You can also do it. You just have to you just have to be determined and just be focused. So it's something to encourage them to do, just to keep doing what they're doing, and then they can make it.
Hmm. Um, in terms of like resources that you point people to, or types of learning or types of training that you recommend for people, are there things that tend to come up uh, a lot for you?
Yeah. So one of the things I realized with most of the young people coming to technology is has to do with focus, and then distraction. This two opposite things, in a sense that one, they're distracted with a lot of technology going on. So today they tell themselves, I want to learn something else. I want to learn JavaScript, and then tomorrow they having a conversation with a friend, and a friend is like, hey, I'm learning Python, I'm using Python to do some AI stuff, and then immediately they stop focusing on the JavaScript and they want to go and learn Python. So there's a lot of distraction because now what we're having is information overload. Gone were the days where internet wasn't accessible to us that much, so we didn't even have enough information to learn. But now there's so much, probably there's just so much info on the web that you can't even decipher, which is which. But the problem is again the focus, the lack of focus. Instead of them to probably take time and know that, you know what, to be good at something, you need to understand the rudimentaries of it. You need to understand the fundamentals. You need to take it step by step. They mostly jump the gun, and they don't consider having mentors or people to guide them and help them. So it's a barrage of like issues. But then with some mentorship program and the community we are running, we're able to help some of them through like WhatsApp, through Teams. We're guiding their steps into achieving their goals.
Mm-hmm. Is any of the work that you do related to like university programs or secondary school programs?
Yeah. So currently I have 6 people I'm mentoring. Some of them are, yeah, some of them are still in the university, some of them are out. And then myself and Frank, the community organizers, we are planning on launching what we call Tech on Wheels, where we're taking technology to the deprived people in the area. So think about it, taking 3D printing to like the remotest areas of the country, or taking how to use Scratch, to teach them basic programming. So those are some of the interventions we're actually doing. And then through the communities we are running, we are also empowering some of the soon to graduate university students to empower them with the various skills on the Microsoft ecosystem. So you can actually scale up. Aside from what you learned from school, you probably have power up skills. You probably have like Power BI skills or PVA skills that will make you more relevant in the job market.
All right. How do you like being an MVP in an era where you can create so many different types of media for the community? Like you talked about broadcasts and your blog and videos and recorded podcasts, all the rest. How is it fun? Is it fun for you? I assume.
So naturally, like I mentioned earlier, I have a natural tendency of teaching and learning and sharing. Sometime in my past, I actually taught in a technology school. So there's that part of me that is always wanting to give up, wanting to teach. So that has been part of me, and it's for me it's fun. So even before even the MVP came, for me it was just I think I want to do this. And the funny thing was that I kept buying all my equipment. Like I knew I need a mic, I need a mixer. I knew that I was going to do it. I just kept buying the stuff, and then at one point I was like, okay, I need to get started. I had put it off for like a while, but then eventually when I kicked started, it was just flowing like that. But it's an interesting time, being an MVP that adds some extra value, to what you're doing. It adds some extra reach. It adds you to a community of very devoted, very committed, and very interesting group of people who are always there to support you in different ways. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's always so great to meet people who are MVPs like yourself, who I hadn't known before. Clearly you're doing a lot of great stuff for the community, and that that's like it's interesting how different people all have that passion throughout that MVP ecosystem. So I'm glad to hear that you're recognized that way as like the others. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'd love to keep following your work on IoT and see where that goes and how it develops. So I hope we can stay in touch. And again, thanks for taking the time to chat.
Sure. Thank you very much for this. Anytime, I'm always, open to having conversations and discussions that help promote technology. I have a simple philosophy that I believe we can use tech to change the world. So it's just, one bit or bite at a time. So yeah, anything with tech that builds community, yeah, I'm up for it.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Samuel.
Awesome. Thank you for having me too.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to Samuel Adranyi for joining me on this episode. You can find Samuel online in a lot of places. His blog is sadranyi.me. His podcast is called Control Escape. It's CTRLESC.simplecast.com is the home for that. And you can find him all over social media as well. That's it for this episode. To reach me, Jay Gumpert at msdynamicsworld.com, or you can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and even Facebook. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.